This is day 1 of the July 2005 7-day retreat in Springwater. Yeah, it's nice when the air condition turns off, then we can hear the wind and the birds, if there are any. Well, there are, but they don't always talk. They're also silent sometimes. And listen to the sounds of silence, as somebody has called it. The beauty of that. The beauty of silent listening, which we touched upon yesterday. That beauty of silent listening expresses itself in our faces. That's why these Buddha sculptures of Eastern products of Eastern religion are so touching, so accessible. The openness, the transparency of a face that expresses silent listening, or silent awareing, as I call it. Awareing or seeing. Seeing doesn't mean to see something. Listening doesn't mean to hear something. Then the world is divided up into the listener and what she hears, or the seer and what he sees. And the one who's aware and what he is aware of. Then the world is divided into subjects and objects. That's a more theoretical way of putting it. Or into me and you, even though it's not denying that there are all kind of different bodies all independently moving, as it were. We're not totally independently moving. There are a million forces acting, gravity being one. We love these pictures of the floating astronauts. People are willing to pay $20,000 for 5 minutes of weightlessness. Maybe it's a little bit longer, not much. Up and floating and down again into the heavy earth. Not just heavy with gravity, but with its thought-created problems. So usually the first day of a talk we wonder about a new kind of listening or a new kind of learning, which we just had a talk about the other Sunday. A new kind of learning which is not our habitual, conditioned learning, where we hear in order to retain. If we're not listening in the class or in the lecture hall, it irritates the speaker or irritates the teacher that the student is not listening. Because if the student isn't listening, how can he learn? How can he remember, which is considered learning? Which has its place. We need to remember a million things to exist and to negotiate our life in this world, technological, even primitive technology or super technology. It takes a lot of memory. And our inheritance, DNA, genes and so forth, this is also memory. Memory over the millennia. And that is how we exist and perpetuate ourselves. So we're not saying you come here in order to unlearn memory. This would be crazy, a ridiculous expectation. We come here to become much more aware of what is memory and what is the spontaneity of this moment, which may be a memory arising. It can be arising very spontaneously, but to be seen and felt as a memory of the past, which very often poses itself in between this present and the memory image in the brain, which we have not learned in school to discern as memory. We just think or assume that the memory picture in the mind is the real thing. When I see you and I remember what you did to me or did for me, and act on that as though this was still what you are completely, that is not helpful, because you may be quite different. You may want something different. You may have changed, and I cannot perceive it because I know how you are. And if you think of your problems with children or with husbands and wives or partners, it often arises out of this assumption that I know what you are. I know what you're going to say. Don't tell me again. And you haven't even said anything. You may not have said that. I remember sometimes when we had some problem with our son, something that he did which he wasn't supposed to do. And Kyle, who was in the school business, he was school teacher and school principal later, he was very worried because in school that was his obligation, his challenge to kind of do something about all this misbehavior that would crop up. And then he comes home and here it is again. So here I need to see whether we can do something. And he would wake up sometimes in the middle of the night and say, Toni, we got to figure out something with Ralph so this doesn't happen again. And I hadn't done any Zen training or stuff like this, but there was an instinctive feeling, let's not have any plans for this, because if we have a plan of how we're going to be with him on the basis of what he did, we will not perceive him this moment, and that'll be awry. The meeting will not be appropriate, and we may do injustice to the child or to the young man. So we discussed that, and Kyle was so open, and there was never that we would argue about this. We just would partake or share each other's insights. One time it was mine, one time it was his. And ultimately it's nobody's. Insight is just the intelligence of living without images, without assumptions, which needs, doesn't it, first of all, to become aware that we live on assumptions and relate to other people on what we assume them to be. Oh, what an enormous challenge to become aware of that. Not that the assumptions are always wrong or faulty, they're not. But it's not this fresh moment without an assumption. To see the assumption and then wonder, well, is this really appropriate to assume before I haven't even looked freshly? So if that can occasionally happen in our life, it'll be an enormous accomplishment, if you will. To not, in a conditioned reflex manner, act on our assumptions, but to hold it. Wonder whether this is really so. That takes a lot of inner flexibility and openness. It's marvelous when that is possible, and it is possible for human beings not to be totally tied to their conditioned responses, but to become aware of them, which is how the chain of cause and effect snaps at that moment of becoming aware of a cause and wondering whether there has to be this effect. The cause being an assumption laid early. Maybe my parents or their grandparents have started it, probably even earlier than that. Unthinkable past. And it just keeps on going. How people are, how strangers are, how people with different color skin or different shape of eyes are. It is so strongly perpetuated that it has become part of our unquestioned heritage. And to begin questioning is like a huge earthquake. And as this is started in each one of us, we will find, maybe to our surprise, how much we defend our patterns, our assumptions, our opinions and stereotyped images. We defend them. They are me. You're attacking me when you question my opinions. It feels almost like a physical attack because the body reacts with tensions, muscular tensions, with all kinds of poured out hormones, adrenaline, or whatever all the names are of these juices, which keep us in anciently established patterns. And yet, it's wonder of wonders that can be awared, stop and look, wonder, and wonder whether it has to continue this way, without immediately saying no, it's impossible, or yes, it must. Leave it open, but ask the question. Leave it open and ask the question. And see if that question can be asked without sort of a whip in the hand. If you don't question it or if you don't change, then you're not good. You're bad. You're not adequate, not as good as the others. It is an unending amount of network of opinions and assumptions which rules our behavior. And to become aware of it is to become aware of more and more and more of this network. It's so intricate, so never-ending. There's no end to this work of awaring. If you think there is, or have read the books in that way, that once you have, what is the word, sanctioned enlightenment or kensho, then you've got it. Well, this is one of the most erroneous assumptions. You've got nothing. It's a beautiful, supposedly, it's a beautiful statement of the Buddha, who said, I attained nothing from complete unexcelled enlightenment, and that's why it is called complete unexcelled enlightenment. Because I attained nothing. Now what kind of logic is that? It used to give me a hard time. And people argue with me too, well, you attained something, you can see better or so. Well, don't assume that this is an attainment. Maybe it is just the waking up to what's possible for each human being. Because if it's possible here, it's possible everywhere. So what is this new kind of learning or awaring? or listening, seeing. Well, we've already mentioned several points, namely to listen, to aware without images, which means not magically getting rid of the images, but to aware them, to become cognizant or conscious, that I don't see you the way, I don't really know how you are, but I see you according to what I remember about you, or what is really more dangerous is about what other people have told me about you. As a very dangerous assumption. So when other people tell us about other people, or when we tell people about other people, let's all take that with a grain of salt. I don't know where that expression comes from, but it means don't buy into it. Just realize could be full of erroneous perceptions. It may not be true, which doesn't mean the person is lying or wants to deceive you. They may not. But we are so incapable of really relating about some other people how they are, because we haven't seen them properly. And even when we see clearly at one moment, that's not the total of this person. We have as many sides as there are situations in this world. Each situation provokes a new side in us, a new characteristic. How we respond. Sometimes we are surprised ourselves how we responded to this situation of an emergency, or how suddenly, even though we may be a fearful person, suddenly in an emergency, fear dropped off and there was energy for what you could call right action, meaning growing out of the situation itself, not about my assumptions, what I can do and am not capable of doing. Amazing. It's amazing to find out, did I do that, or did I write that, or did I say that? For better or worse. We come out with things that we don't know why we said that. We feel terrible about it. Why did I say this to this person? Now he or she may be hurt. And it just came out. I wouldn't describe myself as a person who could say something like that, but here it came out. So let us be in awe of our unknowableness, our own and other people's. Forever some kind of a riddle or enigma. Not pride ourselves that we can know somebody or that we know ourselves. We just know little remembered fragments, and they often have been screened by prejudices or wishes to be like an image of myself. That's actually why people find this word work hard here, particularly in the beginning. People expect to come here and do a lot of sitting quietly, maybe forgo some sleep or some meals. People do that even though we don't encourage that, but one may have done it other places or feel I have to do some sacrifice, and then I will become purer, more transparent, or whatever one imagines one will be. That is not what happens. Usually what happens is if we are really looking and not just painting image over image, we're often shocked at what we discover about ourselves. And either there is the strength and an honesty to see it, which comes with what we talked about last night, dropping this identification or seeing its danger, to identify with my image. This is me. Because then you find out this is not me at all. It's just a picture of me, ideal picture. Or the opposite. I may not be half as bad as I think I am. So, if you feel that this work is hard, painful, difficult, wonder whether it is that you want to cling to an image of yourself and dread being exposed for what is really coming out of you moment by moment, which you would say, that's not me. What else is it, if not you? Or can that become a question? What other is it than you? That is a nice opening question. What am I? What really am I? I have thought I'm this and this and this and this, and people have told me since I was this tiny what I am. I know my sister tells me today, she's 80 years, how she suffered from always feeling that I was being held up to her. And she hated that. And to me, this was total error, nonsense. She was held up to me. And I couldn't attain her beauty and talents, and could never attain these extra 2.5 years that she had that I didn't have yet. So these were all false pictures, and suffering from them. How stupid can we be? Or stupefied, better word, stupefied by images. Rather leaving it open, how I am. It's a lifelong discovery. Never ends, not when you are 100, if your interest is to look and find out. But not look and find out a final answer, but an open questioning which brings deeper and deeper perceptions, or awareing. Awareing that there is no fixed me, there are only accumulations of memories and pictures and feelings and desires and fears, you name it, this whole bundle. So the Buddhists call it the skandhas, it's just a bundle of characteristics, capacities that a human being is. And this bundle sort of comes together and dissipates again. Nothing has really has been born, and nothing is dying. It's just a coming together and dissipating here and there and everywhere. So, but to say, oh, I'll make a note of this, or read in books what a human being is or what I am, and remember that doesn't do us any good. It may do us good at a party where we can sound off and sound very erudite or religiously trained or educated, because we know how to quote a lot of masters, religious leaders. But the only thing that counts at all is what is seen here originally, directly, not remembered from other people's seeings. And to begin to discern that too. Am I quoting now? Or do I really see that. And it's not just that I saw it in the distant past, that's long ago. But can it be seen now freshly? What I am and what I'm not. So that there is no error possible about images or acquired pictures or acquired characteristics that we want to project as though we were that. Maybe for safety or for getting admiration. Yeah, getting admiration is a big drive in human beings, which is insatiable, because it never is enough. Never enough. If it's here now, how wonderful, and then next moment, if I see somebody else being admired, then what happens? Either envy and jealousy or dejection. After all, I am no good. And this recent thing that he said, it just didn't mean it, or he tried to deceive me, or whatever all goes on in these amazing human minds. So can these amazing human minds come into light, into awareness? What comes into memory right now is recently a friend wrote me, she tried to compare her way of spiritual practice from what she observed in me. And she said, you are really on a mission to wake humanity up as it sort of zooms toward the brink and try to maybe prevent it. I didn't recognize myself in that. Well, she saw it. I don't know what the instances were. We can't maybe remember this. But I don't feel I'm on a mission. Do you? Am I on a mission? Maybe the passionate way of talking, intense and so forth, gives that feeling. But it's such a wonderful thing to be aware to what's going on in ourselves and each other. And anything that is wonderful to happen, to see, to understand, including the seeing itself, we want to share that, don't we? Is that a good explanation? A better one than being on a mission? Because Mishnah is again the missionary and her task and her flock. This is not a good picture. But this sharing, looking, questioning, and discovering, that is a wonderful thing when it can happen. And if it doesn't happen, and if humanity does totter toward the brink and falls down, well, so be it. What can I do? I don't feel that doing something like here talks or retreats will keep humanity from doing what it needs to do. Maybe, maybe not. I'm not interested in outcome. That would make one crazy, wouldn't it? Because there isn't that much outcome. One Zen master said this work is like a snowflake falling into a deep well. Well, what effect is that? Or you could say a snowflake falling on hot pavement. No effect. Just a moment of sizzling. But what a relief to not have to worry about outcomes and effects, but just to be here together and share. Forget the word share. If you are dreaming about something else, because this isn't of interest, that's okay. I'm not trying to shake you awake, even though sometimes it may sound like that. For that, I beg your forgiveness. if you have questions about anything in this talk and won't forget them, when you leave the hall you can write them down, then bring them to a group or ponder them quietly for yourself. We will end here for today.